So today we're going deep into the biophysics of identity. I'm going to show you the 5-step process with a bonus 6-step as well to rewire your nervous system. So your 2.0 self isn't a goal you're chasing, but it's a signal that you're sending out and attracting in your life. So today's agenda is we're going to go over what is frequency, how your frequency attracts your reality, the science behind it all, how your identity is actually your frequency, and how to remove the blocks from your 2.0 self. Now, as always, guys, make sure you like and subscribe if you do get value from this. So jumping straight into today's training, how do we turn on the frequency? How do we become it? Number one is understand that you all have a frequency. We all have a frequency. Now, I want you to imagine as if you're this radio tower that's sending out a certain signal, and then reality is then matching that signal. So, for example, let's say I am sending out the channel 99. Then in reality, on the TV screen, I'm going to pick up on channel 99. Now, channel 100, channel 101, channel 105, those channels are all playing as well, but I cannot be tapped in, tuned into those because my channel, my frequency is set to channel 99. Now, replace channel 99 with rich, success, that next level, all those things that you want, they're all there. In fact, the information I needed to double my personal business when I was going through these changes was always in front of my face, but I couldn't grasp it yet because I was tapped into a different channel. So think of it like this. Let's take a deep dive into understanding how your frequency works. So think of your thoughts. Your thoughts are actually the electrical impulse. Your thought is the steering wheel, we'll say, to the car. And then the emotions that you feel, is a chemical release that then creates a magnetic field. It's actually like 5,000 times more powerful than your thoughts alone. So your thought is the intent, right? So it's like, okay, I want to be rich. I want $1 million. That is the steering wheel. That's where I want to drive to. And then your emotional state is like the engine. It's the fuel that's actually going to drive there. It's actually going to make it happen. So when we really look at it, plain and simple, your feeling, your most dominant emotional state is your frequency. Okay, so if you gather it up overall, how you overall genuinely feel, that is kind of your frequency. That is your baseline state. Okay, so your thought is the point of focus, but without emotion, it's just going to get rejected. And that's why positive thinking itself does not work, especially if you're in a really low time. Positive thinking just always gets rejected. So let me break this down in a few images when it comes to your frequency and understanding it. So think of it like this. Let's say your baseline right now, how you're programmed conditioned as a child growing up in this world is from a very survival paradigm. And that survival paradigm is shame, we'll say. So your state is constant shame. Shame if you accomplish things, feeling unworthy, undeserving, just overall feeling shame. Now, that is your emotional state. So we'll say that is the baseline right there. Anything around this area, this is what's familiar and safe. This is integrated, ingrained into your actual nervous system. So whatever aligns with more shame or whatever it may be, that is what is familiar to you. Now, logically, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, why would I naturally attract shame into my life? It doesn't need to make sense. Think of for example, think of an animal, even people too, but think of an animal that got abused. That animal will love its owner either way. That animal will want to be with its owner. It's not going to try to run away from the owner. Same thing with people who grew up with abuse. They often find themselves in more relationships of abuse. Logically, it makes no sense, but that doesn't matter. It's because this is what has always been most familiar. And what's most familiar, we want to attract more of because that's how our brain learned to survive in this world. So you could have learned to survive in this world in terrible conditions, but your brain's not like, hey, this is terrible. It just says, hey, this is what's safe and secure. This is what's natural or normalized for us. So we want more of it. So that's why if you grew up with, your parents always fought about money, or money was an evil thing to you growing up, or, you always struggled with money or whatever it may be, when you have those rich thoughts and you want to think of getting rich, for example, right? Well, rich, abundance, that is a higher frequency. That's a high that thought there vibrates on a higher level. And it's not familiar. So that goes into the danger zone and it instantly gets rejected out. So think of it like this. Let's go for a deeper dive. So you as a human, you have this magnetic field. Okay. So let's say in your heart, in your most dominant emotional state is shame. Shame is what you're coming from. Okay. So I come from shame. That's what I'm putting out into the world. And that is also what I'm attracting into my life over and over and over again. The person who comes from lack, who feels like they're never enough, it doesn't matter what kind of materialistic accomplishment they get, they're going to always find the same thing, which is it's still never enough. It doesn't fill that void. It doesn't fill that hole. So I need to go accomplish more and more and more, hoping that maybe I'll feel enough. But the problem is that when you come from lack, you find lack over and over and over again. So when you have these thoughts that you're trying to change your life and you want to get rich, for example, but right now you feel a ton of shame and you're struggling financially, that's how it's always been. That's your dominant state. That's your natural baseline. When you think of abundance and freedom, that higher frequency, it's not familiar. So it instantly gets rejected. It instantly gets pushed away. Okay. So rich, that higher vibration, it's more expanded. All right. Shame is more constricted, it's more low vibration. It takes less energy to be on that lower frequency in that survival paradigm. So there's a complete mismatch here, and it's too big of a jump. So we instantly reject it. I'm going to explain here in a second why that is. Okay, so one more quick example here. So again, let's say your frequency, your baseline is shame. That is where you're coming from. All right. And that is in the survival state. And this is you here. Everywhere as you focus, okay, you're going to find the same thing. So the thoughts, I'm not good enough, the thoughts, shame, these all get accepted, okay, because it's connecting from the core. But the thought of like, I'm rich or the opportunity to get rich, that is going to get filtered out. That is not safe. That is going to instantly get rejected out because it does not align with the core system. So your reticular activating system, RIS, filters it out. It literally will filter out opportunities to get rich, to get more money, to get whatever it is you want that isn't shame, that is a better life. It will filter that out because that information does not matter to the brain, because the brain isn't looking for what's right or what's best or to help you succeed. The brain is looking for what's most familiar. What is most familiar? So you attract what you are. You don't attract what you want. So when, again, you come from lack, if you believe you're not enough, right? You come from lack, that's going to influence your focus. That's going to influence your perspective. That's going to influence even the meaning that you give to situations. So all you're going to find is more lack over and over again to reconfirm that same system. So you keep finding more of the same thing. So where we mess up most, and another huge inspiration behind making this training, when I looked at other trainings around frequency and changing your life, manifesting, creating a better life for yourself, hitting that next level of success, where most people mess up is they make too big of jumps. Okay, it's like I'm going to go instantly from survival, I'm just getting by, I'm super, super poor and struggling, to I am rich and I am so rich and abundant and happy. That's just too much of a jump. Your nervous system literally cannot handle it, which I'll explain to you here in a second how that actually works. So you try to be up here on this level. So this is the map of consciousness here, developed by David R. Hawkins. And let's say you're trying to get to an overall state, an overall frequency of love, of joy, where, that is kind of your overall constant state of being. You're always coming from love. Imagine how good that would be, how good that feels, right? Where you're always coming from love and passion, excitement. Beautiful. But let's say right now, though, you're just like in guilt or shame, where it's like, I'm just trying to make it by the day. I'm literally just trying to survive. I'm humiliated where I'm at. I'm miserable where I'm at. I hate my life. Like, it is way too far of a jump. It's like, I don't even believe it's true. That's not even going to happen. That's not even possible. It's not even realistic. So it instantly gets rejected out. Okay. So then your nervous system can't handle it. So when you're trying to change your personal frequency, your most dominant emotional baseline state, so you can attract a better life, when you're trying to change that, right? If you make too big of a jump, Your nervous system cannot handle it. And I want you to think of it like this. So your nervous system, your ingrained natural state is shame, right? So the frequency, it's on the same level. And let's say it takes one AAA battery to run the shame program. Okay. So that is a match. Your nervous system is ingrained into that. So that is a proper match, that lower state. And it takes less energy to sustain. But if you want to adopt the identity of being rich, if you want to adopt the state of being rich, if that's the new baseline you want to be at, that functions at such a higher rate. It needs more energy. So you actually need 5 AAA batteries, we'll say. So that's why we can't instantly make the jump up, because our nervous system literally cannot handle it. So it then gets rejected. It's like, this is way too unsafe. This rattles me up at the core. I feel terrible resistance. I self-sabotage. I do anything to reject that new state. I just cannot handle it yet. So when we try to make big jumps, oftentimes we fail, not because there's anything wrong with you. It's just the natural process of how the body works, of how it works. So one more example here. Nervous system, right? It filters reality. It decides what is safe, what is a threat. That's where your RAS comes into play. Okay, your RAS is just looking to reconfirm your state. So if you come from shame, your RAS is going to filter out any information that helps you rise, and it's going to continuously search for and allow in information that connects with the core, that connects with your dominant frequency. So then another thing that happens is that the ego protects that state. Your ego literally protects your frequency. Your ego wants your frequency to stay the same, because the ego is basically saying, hey, this is who you've always been in the past. This is your state from the past. I know if you stay in a state of shame, that is the life that you've been attracting, and that's what keeps you alive, safe and secure and consistent. So I'm going to try to recreate that in the future. So every time new opportunities do come in, or you get challenged or whatever it may be, I'll jump in to protect you. That is the ego speaking. The ego is going to protect that state, that frequency. So, and again, example. And when I say state, think of state as your frequency. So the state, the frequency you're on is shame. Okay? That is what's familiar and safe. The ego is going to protect this at all costs. So when you have thoughts of like higher state, thought of like, I want to get rich, the ego is like, that's not possible. That's only for lucky people. That's only for scammers. That's not possible for me. Instantly is screaming at you to reject it at all costs. Get that thought out of here. That's like a disease. I don't want nothing to do with it. Not because it's bad. It's just because it's unknown. It's not predictable. It's not safe. And then what happens is that your RAS jumps in and it's like, okay, so you come from a shameful state. All right, let me filter out all information that does not serve this, and let me filter in the information that does, so we find more shame in your life over and over and over again. Now you can see probably how people who vibrate at a low rate, who have a low frequency, people who are very depressed, they almost dig their hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And especially when we buy into a victim mentality, that, the idea that we can't change ourselves, we get stuck. And it's all we find in our lives, and it's all we focus on. It's all we experience, and it's literally our personal reality. So it's like, you don't get it. This is what's happening to me. This is all the bad things. And it's like, yeah, I believe it. I believe you. It just makes sense. It's just how it works. But that doesn't mean that's you're going to be your reality for the rest of your life if you decide to make a change. Okay. So your RAS filters the data to reconfirm your state, your frequency. Okay. So quick recap here. Frequency equals your dominant emotional state. All right. Your frequency is what you attract into your life. So the frequency, so if I come from shame, that is kind of the frequency I'm living off of, that I then attract more shame in my reality. Okay. Reality is neutral. It has all different possibilities and opportunities. I seem to attract shame, though, everywhere as I go. Same thing like this. I bought this Mustang, and now that I have this Mustang, it's in my awareness. It is safe. It's comfortable to me. Now I'm freaking seeing that Mustang everywhere. So I thought nobody had it before I bought it, but now I see it everywhere. That's just an example, right? Or replace Mustang with shame. So you want to be rich, you want to attract rich opportunities, rich people, rich situations, money, wealth, abundance. You want to live off that frequency, you need to change your baseline. Because if you're living off of a frequency that doesn't align with that rich life, if you're coming from a frequency of fear, of shame, of doubt, of guilt, right? All those opportunities are still there to get rich and level up your life. But you cannot be tapped into them yet because your frequency is not allowing it. Okay? Your brain literally is not allowing it. So let's take a deeper dive. Frequency is my most dominant emotional state. And my most dominant emotional state is my identity. Because identity is who you believe you are. And who you believe you are is created through your thoughts and emotions held over time, neurons that fire together will wire together, which forms identity. All right, so identity is who you believe you are, and beliefs produce those thoughts and emotions that you consistently have. So your most dominant emotional state comes from your belief system, yes. All right. But the frequency that you're on, your dominant state of being, your dominant emotion, your frequency is connected to your identity. All right. And if we want to get into that term of how we attract our lives, law of attraction, right? Well, your identity influences your behaviors and actions, which produce results in your life. So if you come from a state of being where you genuinely feel abundant and rich and successful, and that's who you believe you are, and your brain then must go find evidence to reconfirm that belief, that identity, and then your actions will also back that up. Well, in time, you will also get the results of that as well. That's how it works. It's pretty cool. So to create your 2.0 self, then, here's what we need to do. All right. So first of all, I just want to do one more quick recap before we dive deeper into it. Okay. So again, as I mentioned from the start here, how to turn on your success frequency. We talk about what frequency is. Basically, it is literally what attracts your personal reality. It is the string that you put out into the world that then grabs and picks up on whatever it is that you're coming from. All right. That's your frequency. Then we talked about how your frequency is your most dominant emotional state, which your most dominant emotional state comes from your identity, your sense of self, who you believe you are. Okay. So to create your 2.0 self, here's what we got to do. Number one is that you want to identify your baseline state. Overall, how do you consistently feel on a daily basis? And you can use the map of consciousness if you need to. So, for example, when I was in the lowest lows of building my business, I was in a constant fear-based state. And sometimes I'd get up to desire where I'm thinking about my dreams, I'm craving them, I want to make a change so bad because I'm so disappointed in where I'm at. And then I would go down to apathy, I go down to, grief, I jump up to pride, like I deserve this and I demand this success in my life, right? And then I go back down to fear, and then I go back up to neutral, and then willingness. And anyways, long story short, is you want to get a clear idea on exactly where you're at. What is your baseline frequency? That's the first thing. Okay. Identify what your baseline frequency is, your baseline state. Then the second thing that we need to do that most people get wrong, this is where they mess up, is we need to make small shifts, not massive shifts, small shifts. Think of it like this image right here that I drew. Okay. Is that if you want a bigger life, if you want the capacity to hold more success in your life, you need an expanded frequency. You need to expand yourself. A constricted low frequency, right? A constricted frequency is one of limitation. Fear, shame, doubt. When you're in a survival state, you literally cannot even think clearly. You're very constricted. You're just getting by. You're stuck in constant patterns and loops that are keeping you stuck. But an expanded higher frequency has the capacity to hold more success. You think in abundance. You are abundance. You feel free. You can think more creatively. You can see more opportunities. You're expanded. So in order to do that, though, we need to make small climbs up, climbs that are not too uncomfortable. So that way the nervous system doesn't just instantly reject it. So an example is we want to go from, let's say, shame to desire. All right, on the conscious map. So here's an example of how you can do that. Instead of going from shame and like you're completely scared to death that you're going to fail and lose everything if you go for your dreams, instead of just instantly jumping into like, I am rich now, you want to just start small. Just, I'm capable of learning. I'm capable of making money. I am capable of what X, Y, and Z. I can get better. I can live a better life. I am living a better life. I am creating a better life. You feel how that's not uncomfortable, right? It's more so neutral. So then it does not get rejected. Because if we go from just, let's say you're just barely struggling to pay a bill and you're walking around like, I am rich. Most of the time it just gets rejected. The nervous system's like, no way, you're lying. This is just too far of a jump. All right, so now number 2. All right, so once you get into that, where you have these affirmations, we'll say, that are more so neutral, so they don't instantly change, from 0 to 100, but it gets you out of that shameful feeling to maybe desire, where it's like, well, I still don't feel the best, but now I more so feel desire. Like I'm disappointed in my life. I want to change. Or shame to anger. Anger feels a little bit better than shame, right? Shame is like, pity me, like I'm shameful. Oh, the worst. Anger is like, I'm pissed off and I'm going to freaking make a change. It's a little bit more positive, you could say. Even though it's still anger, it's better than shame, right? So you're building up, you're slowly climbing up the ladder. Then as you do that, as you do this, you want to tame the animal brain. You want to make yourself stay calm, cool, relaxed. Keep everything tame, keep in a good rhythm, so that way you can promote change. You can accept change. You can open up to change. When you're in survival, you are not opened up to change. You're just trying to survive. But when you can get calm, cool, and collected and your nervous system is relaxed, then you can promote healing, change, growth, creativity. You can genuinely start to change your life in that point. But you can't when you're stuck in survival. So examples is move your body, rest, be present, meditate, some somatic work, slowing down in life. All of these pieces here help you build a calm, relaxed nervous system that then promotes change. And then number 4, what you want to do is, with this new state that we just talked about in number 2 and 1, you want to hold that new state. So you're coming from shame and then you're building into desire, we'll say, right? Or anger, whatever it may be. You want to hold that new state despite what reality reflects back to you, because you need to remember that in order for your world to change, in order for the mirror to smile, you must smile first. In order for reality to reflect back to you what you want, you need to change first so you can see it, focus on it, and become it. But it always starts with you. And where we go wrong is that everybody wants results overnight, but there's always a time gap. There's always a little bit of lag time, because you got to realize that the world you're living in right now is a creation from your past frequency, your past identity. So the world that you're going to be living in right now and temporarily in the future is still going to reflect that old frequency. And where most people struggle to change their lives is that they collapse into that. They allow their worth to be outside of them. I want to be rich, but look, I'm poor. I've got these bills popping up. And we instantly snap back and collapse and react to that. And that's how we keep stuck, because we're feeding that frequency. We're feeding that old personal reality over and over and over again. So look at it as a test. When you are working on a new state, right? I'm working on abundance. So I'm working on being neutral with money. I don't want to feel bad about money or upset around money or scared. I want to feel neutral around money. When that bill comes up again, old you would instantly be freaking out, worrying, stressed out. Your guts are hurting and intertwined. You're worried about the future. Now you're not even thinking about building a business or anything like that. New you, though, bill pops up, catch yourself, observe it. It's just a bill. It's neutral. It's okay. I'm not going to react to this. I'm going to decide differently. The person who I want to become, how would they see this and perceive this? If I know that I'm going to reach my goal, is this really a big deal, this temporary bill? No. Okay. I'm going to react to this in a neutral lens then. Now, what you're doing is you made a new decision, so you're going to get a new result in the future. And that goes with everything. Somebody who's trying to lose weight, but they're in a constant shameful state, but if they lost the weight, they'd feel confident and happy, right? When they see the scale fluctuate up a pound or two and then they feel that shame again and then they just give up. See, it never works for me. But if you stay in the state of like, I'm going to feel confident and happy despite what the scale shows me, and I'm going to focus on my part, which is my actions. If that scale fluctuates, you're going to hold that state and say, you know what? That's all right. I'm just going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep doing my part. I'm going to keep acting. And you're going to hold that momentum. You're going to be able to hold that motivation. You're going to keep going. And guess what? Over time, you will get a new result. You will get a new result. So number 5 then is you act off the state. You got to take action. You can't change your life just by thinking about it. You need to take action. So then number 6, oh, sorry, 7's the bonus. So 6 is when tests pop up, you observe, and then you decide how to move forwards in alignment with the new state. So let me just walk you through this really quickly, okay? So again, let's say in business right now, you're constantly stressed out and you're scared of losing everything. So you're in a base, your baseline right now is fear. And let's say that fear is tied into guilt. You feel, excuse me, you feel guilty about your success. You feel guilty about charging people certain money. You feel guilty over your employees working for you and doing all these things for you. You overall are just running off guilt. Okay. But when you imagine making and doubling your business, making 7 figures, you don't have that guilt. You have freedom. You have flow. You have excitement. You have love. Well, the problem is that there's a mismatch there, right? That is the new frequency that you need to be at. That is the dominant emotional state that you're the version of you who has what you want. That is the state that they're in. That is their frequency. Your personal frequency right now, though, is set at guilt. So right now, your brain is literally searching for that evidence of more guilt. You're focusing on it. You can't see the opportunities of that rich self yet because you're stuck at your baseline frequency. So what you want to do is you want to catch that. So you observe and you catch like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is my most dominant emotional state. And then you look to the next closest state. Okay, so I'm going to go from guilt to anger. I'm going to go from guilt to neutral to desire to courage, whatever it may be. I'm going to be a little more courageous. Okay. As soon as you do that, as soon as you start focusing on the new state, right? So you get into the new state. So you start to literally think, but most importantly, feel it. You got to feel it. You got to tie an emotional anchor into it, right? You hold on to that new state. Then you take action based off that new state. So, hey, you know what? I understand my world right now is a reflection of my past frequency, and guilt is still all around me, and these old worries and thoughts. And I recognize my ego is screaming at me right now, trying to make me scared. But I'm going to ignore my reality right now. I see it, but I'm not going to react to it because I'm working on something and I'm building something. And you hold that state and then you take action off that state. So you start to show up in your world with more courage. You start to take a little slightly bit of different actions. You start to think about your situations a little bit differently that allows you to have a different perspective. And over time, as you do this, courage becomes your new baseline and guilt then gets filtered out. Guilt is no longer the baseline. So then you find more courage and you find more courage, and then you build yourself up again. And then you keep building. And guess what? Eventually, you're going to be on the frequency of abundance, of freedom, of flow. And what is your reality going to reflect back to you? The same thing that you've been wanting and attracting. You don't have to worry about reality because reality just reflects you. You got to worry about yourself. Once you change yourself, reality will then reflect it. It must. And I'm going to share with you another reason why to really drive this home. So, a bonus that I teach my clients to really make the most powerful, fastest way to level up your identity to accomplish that next level of success in your business or your life, if you're here for other reasons, is to just change the beliefs that influence your state in the first place. So, like I said, what is your frequency is your identity. Your frequency is your most dominant emotional state. But where do emotions come from? Because emotions are not random, right? You must have an interpretation. You must interpret something, and then you have an emotional response to it. But how you interpret something comes from your belief system. Your belief system is what influences your most dominant emotional state. What you believe to be true then shapes the lens to which you see through life, shapes for your nervous system what is safe and secure and what is a threat, shapes what you give meaning to the situations happening around you, shapes again what you focus on, how you perceive situations. All comes from your core belief systems. So when you have a new belief system, that becomes the new safety for your nervous system once you've found evidence for that belief system. And this new belief system creates new thoughts and emotions because you're not your thoughts. You're not your thoughts, right? You're picking up on your thoughts. So your beliefs produce the thoughts and emotions that you have, which over time will create a new identity. And a new identity influences behaviors and actions, right? If I'm an Olympic athlete and I wake up tomorrow 100 pounds overweight, that's an identity mismatch. That's not who I am. So I got to find a way to return back home to who I know I am, which is an Olympic athlete, right? So your identity drives those actions. And what produces results? How do we manifest things into reality? Is we need actions. Actions produce consequences. Every action has a consequence, a reaction. So actions produce results. So if you want to manifest a new life, if you want to manifest that money, you need to show up as someone who already thinks, feels, and acts as that way. So you need to adopt the identity, right? If you want to attract, if that's what you want your frequency to be, to attract being rich into your life, you need that to be your most dominant state, dominant emotion. So the fastest way to do this, guys, is to just change the root. Why am I feeling this shame in the first place? What would I have to believe to be true about myself, about money, about success, about whatever it is, to be feeling so shameful, to be feeling so guilty, to be feeling so scared right now? And then the limiting belief pops up. And usually it's like not worthy, not good enough, not deserving. I'm scared I'll be unloved if I do this. Usually it's the common ones like that. And then you can change them because beliefs are not facts. So you can change the beliefs that are underlying, that are causing these thoughts and emotions. And as soon as you change the root, well, there's no reason for the old program to still play out. There's no reason to think and feel the old way because that root is gone. It's changed. It wasn't wrapped in truth. It was an illusion of safety. And as soon as you realize that and you change it and you ingrain the new state, the new belief, everything else becomes a ripple effect and changes as well. But remember, as a person, one thing that you struggle with, we all struggle with, is we want results instantly. When I order on Amazon, I want my package tomorrow, for an example. I don't want to wait 30 days like we used to just 10 years ago, which is crazy to think about, right? So we struggle with delayed gratification. You must genuinely like what we call be delusional. You must believe that this is true. You must believe that the result is coming, that even if you cannot see it, you're already acting as it is here now. You must genuinely believe, like, hey, that money is going to be in my bank account no matter what. I'm in the right state. I'm feeling, I'm thinking, I'm acting it. The results right now in my life is just a reflection of my past that literally does not matter. What happens is that the animal brain takes over so many of us, and it's like, no, I need just logic. This is what I see. I see I'm poor. So I'm going to buy into this over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, man, if you keep focusing on the crap, you're going to see crap everywhere as you go. Look at the butterflies. Look at the beauty around you. But it's like, no, but you don't understand. There's crap everywhere. So I got to watch out for the crap. I got to see the crap. I got to smell it. And it's like we just get caught in that loop. You have to have courage. You're not here to live to survive. You're here to live to thrive. And those dreams and visions are in you for a reason. It is your duty to the world to become your greatest, authentic, absolute best self, the version of you who lives their heaven on earth. So, if you want to expand your capacity to handle more success, it's exactly what I do. I help established entrepreneurs break their income ceilings, break the gaps, the ceilings, the caps that they're stuck at, so they can accomplish more success that they know they're able to accomplish. If that is you, you can apply below to see if you're the right fit. And also, guys, make sure you like and subscribe for more content just like this if you're committed to leveling up your life. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys on the next training every single Monday and Thursday. Have an amazing day.